As the official healthcare provider of Minnesota United, Allina Health is focused on keeping our Loons in top condition. And with expertise in orthopedics, sports medicine, heart care, and more, Allina has the team to keep your family in the game too. The experts at Allina Health take the time to get to know you as a whole person, helping you achieve wellness for your mind, body, and spirit. It's an altogether better kind of healthcare. Learn more at allinahealth.org. Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Sound of the Loons, officially episode number 2 of 2024, and so much to talk about. We're only a handful of days into preseason for Minnesota United, and I get to welcome interim head coach Cameron Knowles. Cam, I've gotten to talk to you a lot of times, and now I get to say a head coach at the beginning of your name, but with the first team instead of the second team, so you're no stranger to being a head coach and running things. But first of all, how are you doing? How's the transition been? Just give us a little lowdown heading into this preseason.
Yeah, it's been great. I mean, obviously, it's an unexpected transition, but the first 3 or 4 days of preseason have gone really well. The attitude that the players have come in with, the fitness level that they've come in with, we've really been able to just get on with things. And so it's been a great first 4 days to the preseason.
So when you found out that you were taking over this interim head coaching role, and I don't know how that all transitioned or how that went about for you as far as, how much you knew in advance before, of course, all of us knew in advance. But when you find out that news, what changes for you? Sort of what's your mentality? Any sort of switches in your brain that how you're already a planner and organizer, you know what you're doing when you're at the helm. So what changes for you?
Well, I mean, we'd already been in the process of planning out some of the preseason anyway. I knew I was going to be coming in and in an assistant role really with the first team to start off the preseason. So some of that was already in play. We lost a couple other staff members as well. And so just trying to get everyone on the same page of what do we need and how do we execute so that the players see on day one that everything's buttoned up and, the training's going to be good. The testing's going to be aligned. And we're not going to skip a beat. And so it was just figuring those little details out, speaking to some of the senior players on the team as well, to talk to them and just say, listen, I know this is unexpected. I know we're starting preseason and, I think it was probably 10 days or something at that time when I found out. But, let's just get on with it. And so from day one, from the first meeting we had, like I said earlier, they've just been excellent.
And when you look specifically at the way you even ended 2023, I mean, you were part of the first team staff and you had already been around the first team quite a bit anyways, I mean, the integration, the cohesiveness, the working with first team players with the twos. So was it a smoother transition for you having been on the bench for the end of 2023 in that capacity? Did it not matter? Because you already know all the guys, what was that a smooth transition for you?
Yeah, I would like to say it's smooth. I mean, there was a familiarity. I've been around a lot of the players before. Obviously, the end of last season when I first came here and I was working primarily with the first team, 3 seasons ago, there's still a lot of players from that group. And as you mentioned, the back and forth between the second team and the first team. So I think there was familiarity for the returning first team players. And like I mentioned the other day after training, there's familiarity for the young players that are coming into the preseason as well. We have a number of second team and a few, U19 academy players coming in. And so there's a familiarity for them to come into the group. It's not as daunting as well. So it's been a good level from the returning players and the senior players, and also a good level from the younger guys as well.
What has the attitude been like from the groups and coming back in? I always know, I mean, there's always this energy, right? When everybody gets back in the building together, regardless of it's 20 below outside, regardless of what the coaching situation, there's just an energy about the players and the staff when they all get back together again. What's the attitude been like?
Yeah, listen, fantastic. The like you say, everyone, they come back in, and on the first few days they're in different places at different times doing their medical testing. And, the first time they get in the locker room together and they start sharing stories about, what they've been doing in their off season. And it might be the first time some guys have communicated with each other for months, so there's an excitement, there's an energy, there's a newness to it. There's a lot of new staff as well, which are bringing a new energy to the group. And so it's been great. I mean, the players have been really good to work with. They've been really receptive to what we've been asking of them, and they're really doing a great job of just getting on with it.
We talked to Will Trapp last week in the first episode of 2024. And of course, I mean, the kind of guy Will is, right? I mean, talk about a veteran leader and somebody just to have in the locker room in these types of scenarios and situations, whether it's a regular season or it's a little bit unusual in what some of the challenges you're facing. And he basically laid it out. I mean, he just said, look, it's on us at the end of the day, that the attitude that we come in with, there's always ups and downs of seasons and challenges. He's been around a long time, much as you have. So you understand this is a business and nothing is ever maybe exactly as planned. How much do you lean on guys like Will Trapp, like Michael Boxall? And I loved what Will said also. He talked about being a leader and saying that, you don't try to put people in roles that they're not suited for. So if Devin Padelford has a way of leading and doing certain things that he's great at, let him do that. If Caden Clark has a way of leading and doing certain things, let him do that. Like bringing out the best in each other, regardless of how old they are. But how much do you lean on some of those quality leaders?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and that's a reason why there were, some of the first people that I reached out to, one, to sort of get the pulse of those guys, and two, to, just get the pulse of the group as a whole. But they're a big help, in terms of setting expectations for coming in at a really high standard. Will always comes in as one of the fittest players. And when you have an experienced guy that is leading that from day one in terms of their preparation and what they've done in the off season, it sets a standard for everyone else. So, we've been fortunate to have, a few older guys in the group that can lift those guys up, that can say, listen, business as usual, let's go, and just get to work. So yeah, fortunate with that.
You just talked about the mindset of the guys coming in, but what's the physical nature of these guys coming back in? Did you do a beep test? Like, what do we got going on over there in the first few days? How did everybody fare in those first few days?
Yeah, we do a version of a beep test for the guys, and the standard overall was quite good.
Did you make the goalies run it?
No, no. And you know what? I think everyone kind of wants the goalies in there because they want them to drop out first. So it sort of allows everyone else to, start falling by the wayside. But no, the goalkeepers weren't in it. The standard was high. You could see that in the group. No one was wanting to be, like always with the beep test, no one wants to be the first one out. And the guys pushed themselves. Will Trapp, like I said before, I think he led the group. Britton Fisher, actually, young center back with the second team, wasn't too far behind. And we've had a couple guys come in recently in the last couple of days that have, missed it on the first day with the whole team, that have also come in and run it. We had two guys run it together, one guy run it on his own today, and that's never easy. And the standard for those guys has been excellent as well, probably above average for the group.
You didn't jump in with him? You weren't like, hey, bud, I don't want you to run this by yourself. I'm going to jump in there.
If I try and jump in, the wheels will fall off pretty quick.
You should have thrown Manny in there.
Well, he's been trying to run some more. Yeah, so maybe he's there. He needs a fitness test to see where he's at.
Right. I think trying was the key word there. I appreciate that. Yeah. We all know how the body kind of starts to deteriorate after a while, so I get it. But when you look at your future and how do you navigate your personal space in this facet? You've gotten in this flow and this drive and this comfort level with the twos and made so much progress, and you're number two and felt like the chemistry and everything was flowing. Then you kind of get thrown into this role at the end of the 2023 on the bench with Sean McCauley. And then now here you are taking the helm of the first team. Where's your sort of mindset going into this?
I mean, it's funny. I just said this to someone earlier this morning. I'm kind of getting to live what I talk about with some of our younger players. You don't necessarily, an opportunity doesn't always come when you think it is. You might have 3, 4, 5 really good performances as a player and think you should play your way into the team, but that's not how it works. more often than not, it's an injury, it's a suspension, it's something like that that creates an opportunity. And then the work that you do before is what sets you up for when the opportunity comes. And I think being in the second team environment with so much that's in flux all the time, every day, week to week, what the squad looks like, training session on any given day, someone getting pulled out of a training session in the middle, you just have this really flexible mindset, and fortunate that myself and the staff we have, a lot of them have had those experiences where they're adaptable, and so we just get on with it and put together a good day for the players, and then, focus on the next one.
What are you most excited about heading into the preseason? I think you guys take off here to Tucson maybe in a few days, and then of course you're heading back here and then to Coachella for some games. What are you most excited about now that the group is in when you look at 2024?
I think it's always exciting when you get to see the team play against someone else. It's one thing to be in here, and especially how confined our space is with the dome, and you're working often in smaller spaces and smaller groups, to be able to get somewhere where we can really open the guys up, where we can see them in 11v11 situations, where we can start to see them in different systems of play and things like that. I think that's what's going to be exciting, because the intensity of how they've trained the last 3 or 4 days has been really, really good. And to see that then translate into a game, I think would be really satisfying.
Yeah, I think when, and we've all been there, right? When you're training in these environments, especially during preseason, and not only are you kicking each other every day, but also at the same time, like you said, you're training inside. It's a little bit gray out, and then you go into a gray dome. It's just the nature of the beast until you guys can get out of town. It just is what it is. And there's a lot of clubs that go through it, but there's something about getting into that fresh air and the sunshine and then getting to train in a different environment. Do you think that plays a huge piece? Again, you've been around a long time as a player and a coach, of just the change of scenery, because preseason is long, to kind of refresh everybody and get people rejuvenated in those different environments.
Yeah, I think it does. I think it's nice to get the group away. It's nice, especially when you have new players coming in, that they then have a lot of time around each other to get to know each other. They get to know their teammates, and we have a decent returning core. But for those new guys, to have a bit more familiarity with the group, that social time, and obviously to have the good weather and nice fields to be on, to train, to be outside, and just making sure then that we maximize that time, because we will have to come here in between, and then we go to Coachella. And by the time we get to Coachella, you're really looking ahead to how you're preparing for that first game of the season. So, but just being intentional specifically with this Tucson trip, because that's our real opportunity to load the guys.
And then last but not least, just looking at MLS in 2024, when you look at how 2023 ended, and Columbus Crew and Wilfred Nancy and LAFC kind of up near the top again, the Western Conference, kind of, a lot of moves being made in this window in this offseason, and teams, shipping players out and getting some players in. What do you make of just the upcoming MLS season, the growth of this league? I know we've talked a lot in the past about the twos and the growth of MLS Next Pro and things like that. But when you look at MLS as a whole, for as long as you've been around it, what do you make of 2024 and sort of the growth of where we're at?
It's truly unbelievable. I mean, the growth of the game in this country, when I first came here to the States for college in 2000, 2001, something like that, and where MLS was, and then my first experience in MLS in 2005, and, fraction of the teams that you have, and even the divisions below, you look at how USL has grown and how MLS Next Pro has grown, and just the overall growth in the country. But then when you start looking at the stadiums and the training facilities and the infrastructure that clubs are putting around their players, it's unbelievable. I mean, there's just so much opportunity here as a player, and coaches, all the staff that are trying to work in the game and have a career in the game. There's just so much opportunity now. So as you look to 2024, I mean, it's like every year that comes before it, the league just keeps getting better and better and better. And there's always, a group of teams that are raising the standard in some way. And it's fantastic to see the types of players that are coming into the league, to see how teams are strengthening their squads in the off season, and how competitive it will be coming up. I mean, that's one thing we know to be true in MLS is, the parity there. And when you look at the games, they're all going to be competitive. There's all going to be a lot of really good teams vying, to make the playoffs come the end of the year.
Awesome. Thank you, Cameron Knowles. I appreciate it. I appreciate you taking the time. I know you're rushing in, rushing out. You're probably trying to get some lunch in before the next session starts. So I appreciate you taking the time. Good luck down in Tucson and in Coachella and on 2024, whatever that may look like. I appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you. Always a pleasure.
All right, everybody, stay tuned. Segment number 2 coming up of Sound of the Loons presented by Allina Health. I'm going to be joined by Caden Clark. MNUFC's March 2nd home opener against the Crew will be here before you know it, and the excitement only ramps up from there. 2024 is packed with big matchups, including showdowns with LAFC, Seattle, Cincinnati, and more of MLS's finest. Between the First 5 and Flex 5 ticket packages, there's never been a better way to see the Loons games you are most excited about. Learn more about these awesome deals at mnufc.com/tickets. All right, everybody, welcome back to segment number 2 of Sound of the Loons presented by Allina Health. And now I get to be joined by, I would say, newcomer Caden Clark, but it's kind of like newcomer, but a return to home, but you've been well-traveled for a 20-year-old at this point. So thank you, Caden, for joining me first and foremost. I know you're extremely busy in these preseason days, so thanks for taking the time. I appreciate it.
Of course, happy to be on the podcast.
Yeah, awesome. You know what? You probably do you have like any ice wrapped around your legs? Or are you feeling pretty good right now with the gym workouts and the two? Although I will say, Will Trapp spoke very highly of you in the last podcast about how hard you guys have been working leading up to this point. So maybe this is like nothing new for you.
Yeah, no, I feel pretty good. We had a really good group in the off season of a couple of players. Will, Devin, Pat, sometimes Boxy and Z would come in. So we've been getting after it, the last 2.5 months. So it's awesome to have, a group to train with, but then your teammates as well. So it's been really successful, and we all did really well on the fitness test. So it's good to have that team camaraderie, going pretty early. So yeah, just had a great off season, and body feels good. Just got stepped on a few times, and it's cold out, so you know how that goes. But yeah.
Yeah, you don't love that walk between the building and the dome. They have it.
About
I know
15
how that feels.
Yeah, exactly.
So talk to me about this fitness test. I mean, I still can't believe you guys haven't convinced the goalies to join or like somehow manipulated that, the fact that they should have to join, even if they have a lower standard of what they need to meet. The fact that like Dane St. Clair just gets to stand on the sideline and just probably spew jokes and ridicule you guys just doesn't seem fair.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you on that. They should probably be in it a little bit. It's not bad for your goalie to get some fitness in. You never know when you'll need it, so yeah.
Well, it's just to prove that you can, but maybe they don't even care. I don't know. What's the mindset? Maybe they don't even care. They're more just like happy that they don't have to do it. So
right, they're doing their own thing.
They're doing their. Hey, all I have to say is I've seen those drills where they just consistently dive back and forth on their side over and over again for like a half hour and have to get back up. Like that doesn't look enjoyable either. So maybe I would take that trade off for the beep test.
Right.
So talk to me about your journey. I want to, because the first time around with Minnesota United, when you were in the mix and then you went to New York, but like, we didn't really get a chance to talk to you before that moment. What was your journey like? What was it like playing youth soccer in Minnesota? Then you have the Minnesota Thunder, then they get an MLS team. Like, what was your journey like as a youth soccer player in the state of Minnesota?
Yeah, I'll kind of give you the rundown. 'Cause I feel like people have asked me, but no one really knows like the whole story. So obviously I was with Minnesota Thunder Academy through my youth years, and then left the club a year or two, and then came back, played in the DA as well up until I was 13, I believe. And then it was at a pivotal point where Minnesota got the professional team, and then we were just waiting, like, would they get an academy, would they not? There was rumors of maybe they'll have my age. I was in 03, so I would have been U15 at the time, I think. And it was like kind of waiting on that, and then never happened. They went with the 04s. Mm-hmm. So by them starting with the 04s, like all my buddies, all my friends, like they're gonna be a part of the team and everything. So I was bummed out, of course. You want to be at home, you want to play for your hometown club in the academy at that time. And it was at a pivotal point because Thunder or MTA was losing their DA ship, or that was the talk in the coming years, which they did. They went to Eastern UNL. So it was like, okay, what do we do here? So fortunately enough, my dad, you know, we were in contact with a couple MLS clubs, Barca Academy, of course, and that was the Barca Academy was really like a blind thing. Like it was July 4th weekend in the summer. We were like, hey, let's just go down and see it. They have like a camp, like a trial camp where you could just sign up for. So we went and did that. I did really well, and then got offered a scholarship there. And it was kind of like a leap of faith. It's brand new. It's brand new. It's where RSL was at. Their academy was down there in
Is that
Costa
in
Grande.
Arizona?
Yep, Costa Grande, Arizona.
Nice, cool July 4th weekend in Arizona. Nice
We
outdoor
walked out.
tryout.
We walked out of the airport like a furnace. It was awful. It was the worst thing. I'm like, what are we doing here? It's in the middle of nowhere as well. It's in Casa Grande, so it's about an hour south of Phoenix Airport, and then an hour and a half north or an hour of Tucson. So kind of in the middle of nowhere. You got about a Walmart in the town and everything. That's about it. Maybe a Chipotle, and then so went down there, made the team, and I'm 13 years old at this point. And it's like, do you really pass that up? We didn't know what it was exactly, but we knew it was going to be, better than what I had here. So we did that. And that was obviously my decision at 13, but also a family decision. You're 13 years old and your parents are letting you go. It's not easy to do. I don't think it happens, that often. So, I'm thankful for them for letting me do that. And it was a lot of fun. I mean, I developed very quickly there. I played up very quickly there and got in a rhythm and a groove. And then, I just hit strides. And next year came up, played 2 years up in playoffs as well. I was 15 or playing U19s, or 4 years up, 15 playing U19s. In the playoffs, I scored 3 goals in 3 games in the group stage, or maybe 4 goals, 4 games, something along those lines. And then my sporting director, the academy director of Barca Academy, went to New York Red Bulls that following year. So that really bummed me out because he was like my main guy. Like we were like really good, like a second dad to me out in Arizona. But then I got scouted from that playoffs to Wolfsburg, and the Wolfsburg scout came and they invited me for a trial. And as I'm there, the academy director from Barca Academy got appointed to Red Bull New York. He set it up like, hey, you're over there. Let's get you a tryout at Leipzig since you're already in Germany. So I did a week in Wolfsburg, a week in Leipzig. Did really well, and that's where they offered the pathway to go from to New York, USL to Leipzig, and then obviously the things changed in between there. Of going to the first team in New York to develop more, get a year or two playing first team, and then come over. So that was kind of the pathway they set up for me, and I would say it had a plan. It was set up by both clubs, and it was I thought it was effective in the time I was there. And trust me, I wish I was here at a young age. And I sat down with Bill and Adrian when I was 15 years old before I signed for or maybe it was 14 before I signed for New York, and it was like, this is our plan, and they just didn't have a team for me at the time, so it made it very difficult. They had Forward Madison in Wisconsin, and you got to make that trip every weekend for a game, and then obviously training maybe with the first team. It was just like there was no clarity around it, and that was kind of the hiccup that they're trying to give me an opportunity and a chance, but it just not everything wasn't aligned, and that kind of made it difficult to do.
When you look back at the pathway and you restate it right there, what made you feel like this, you always wanted to take this pathway as opposed to playing college soccer? Or like, did you know this was always the pathway you wanted to take, whether it was an academy, whether it was over in Europe with a younger age group, or you ended up in Leipzig, or you ended up in Red Bulls, but even with Barca, like, did you always know that you wanted to go in that direction and not do the college soccer thing in the United States, or were you still just feeling it out at that point?
Yeah, that's a good question. I got that asked yesterday by one of my teammates, and I think it's I think when I was around 14, 15, I kind of knew I could go to another level. Then some of my teammates that were going to top colleges like Duke and the best in the country. And I thought about it and I never went on a visit, but the first day, when I was a junior, they could talk to me. I got flooded with every school. And it was like it was awesome to be acknowledged and to know that, they want you and everything. And I remember talking to my dad about it. And this was right on the time I went to Germany already. So this is kind of the time of like already been there. They really like me. So at that 15, 16 point, I was like, I think I got to go this route.
Mhm.
And my dad, love him to death. He goes, you're not getting on a plane to go visit a college. Like you're not. This is New York and Leipzig. This is gonna happen. You're already in talks with them. It doesn't make sense. So do I wish I would have? Of course, a part of me. I think it's part of everyone's life. And I wish you could experience certain things, of course, but I wouldn't trade it for anything right now.
Right. I mean, you can't, I mean, hindsight is different and you wouldn't trade the experiences you've already had. I just wondered if that was part of the thought process of the pathway to begin with, and not necessarily like, just the soccer. It can just be from like a life perspective or experience perspective, or like what you
Right.
even maybe like at high school, having left when you were at such a young age, like what you experience in middle school and high school and those different sort of like life experiences as a kid. My nephew right now, he plays, hockey, and he went away instead of playing for his high school team. So we have this discussion all the time, like, but you never know. I mean, each person's situation is different, and each, you got to do what is right for you in those moments. I just wondered if it was part of the pathway or the discussion of the pathway in the beginning.
I would say no, because we kind of positioned myself at Barcelona Academy because I was going to go to Philly. I was going to go to other academy, Portland as well. And the Barcelona Academy kind of allowed it. Well, Minnesota still retained my rights, but if I went there, I think we thought that I wouldn't be tied to a team, which gave me more freedom to go somewhere else in MLS or outside as well. So I think that was kind of thought process, which kind of makes me think that I wasn't planning or, we weren't planning on going to college. And then looking back on it now, it's kind of crazy to make that bet on a 13 or 14-year-old, but it paid off.
Well, and when you look at your journey and what you've already done and you're only 20, like the life experiences that you've already had and the wisdom that you've probably gained from lessons that you've learned and different coaches, different styles, different countries, different languages, different everything, that you've done to this point. What was the motivation? What was the deciding factor? How, after all that, did you end up in Minnesota? And also, like, what did you learn from those other experiences going overseas and playing?
Yeah, I'll answer the first one. I think I was just at a time where, Rebel Life, they own you. It's a big club, Rebel Leipzig. They have top players in the world. And I was very fortunate to be there for the time that I was. And it was more or less like I needed game time. I was coming off an injury from New York. I had a pretty bad back injury that kept me out for a couple of months that I got with the national team. And I think it was just at a point where I wanted to play. I need to play. I'm 20 years old. Maybe if I was 30, different story. So I think 20 years old, I missed a year of development because of that back injury and some other reasons as well. And I think it was just a time where I sat down with Adrian in the summer. They invited me in for training to keep me fit before I went back to Europe, and they liked what they saw. And I think, I fit pretty well in with what he was doing. And it was just kind of like that talk. And Adrian's always been there for me. Even when I was in New York and in Leipzig as well, we would text or get dinner. Just as a role model, he was for me because he had a great career as well, and he's been through similar things. And I think just having someone like that is crucial. So I was very tight with Adrian, and I think we sat down in the summer and just talked about the game plan going forward and what he thought would be good for me. And I talked with my family, and I thought as well, I think coming home and reestablishing myself would be key. I think to progress my career. Instead of going on loan, the problem is sometimes when you go on loan to clubs, they don't own you. And let's say an injury comes along. Let's say, you're not informed for 3-4 games. They really don't have any incentive to not necessarily care for you, but there's a different approach to it. So I think just having a club that wants to invest in you and kind of help you develop your career, like I said, is crucial.
What's it been like since you've been back? I mean, and just looking ahead now, because I know you came back officially like in September, but you couldn't really start until this year. You've been training in the off season with guys here, but what is it going to be like, and how much are you looking forward to being in front of your family, being in front of your friends? What's it been like since you've been back here after traveling all over the place? What does that look like for you?
Yeah, obviously I've been home in some off seasons before where you have 2 months and stuff, but now it's kind of like it's fun, it's great, but it's kind of weird. I've never had this much time to get dinner with I got dinner with my mom last night, like random. Like, normally everything when I come home is for a week or 2 days or off season. Like I said, it's longer, but you're trying to get everything in so quick. You're trying to see your friends, your family, do your favorite restaurants, do everything you can. So I think for me it's amazing, just having your support around you. I know my parents have sacrificed a lot and they would fly to me to make sure I'm okay in Germany, Denmark, and New York. They'd be at every home game. So I think just having that support here, obviously I felt it, but I think being in season and, them coming to every game, I can look over in the stands and they're there and, it's just, you can just calm down a little bit, I think, and you just have everyone around you. I think that's the biggest thing is just your support system.
When you played in New York, you scored some goals. You did really well with the first team there before you went to Leipzig. Like, what do you make of this league? I mean, you're still only 20, but when Minnesota got a team, you said, I think you were 13, correct? As an 03,
13.
were you
Yeah.
like somewhere in that range, right? So what do you make of this league at this point to come back into it? You played with the Red Bulls, but then you went overseas to come back to where this league is right now, heading into 2024 and wanting to be back in MLS and a part of that.
Yeah, I think it's obviously it's different than Europe, just different play styles, different levels, just whole it's a different caliber, I would say. But I would say this league has really grown on young players. I think, shipping them off, which they shipped me off as well. And I think I would be lying to myself if that wasn't my goal again, was to, help this club do great things and, obviously progress my career and, hopefully be back over there in a couple of years' time. I think that should be everyone's goal at this age. But I think for me coming back, it's just like I said, helping this team in the transition that they're in. And I think, just being a key player and trying to contribute as much as I can, like I did in New York. I think that's my biggest goal.
When's the last time you played in front of your family or friends in Minnesota? Like a real game,
Maybe U13 DA game.
right?
I couldn't even tell you, like 7 years. Yeah. I haven't
Yeah,
been
so I mean,
home. Yeah, I haven't been home for like a long time in 7 years. So this is, a treat for me to be here.
yeah. So like the first time you walk out at Allianz Field and you step on the field and your fans, your family, your friends, and all that jazz are in the stands. Like that's going to be, I would imagine, a pretty cool moment to be able to experience that with everybody.
Of course, I've already thought about it, and I just can't imagine the feeling that it's gonna have. I kind of already have my first goal celebration. I might go over to my parents and hug them. I know where they're sitting. I know where their tickets will be, so I might go over there and give them a big hug. And maybe I'll get a yellow card, maybe I won't, but it'll be worth it.
So what's it been like since coming back in? I know we just talked about this. You've been training in the off season as well. Will Trapp, spoke incredibly highly of your core group. I mean, I think he was like New Year's day after Christmas, 7
Yeah,
a.m. These guys are showing up. They're
yeah.
putting in the time, putting in the work. No slouches in this group. What's it been like to get the guys back together, everyone officially, for preseason? You mentioned the fitness test, but what's the vibe around the group, even with some of the uncertainty heading into it? What's the vibe?
I think the vibe, it's high. I think everyone's excited to get going. I think everyone's excited to get down to Tucson and get some games. I think the leaders in the group have done a great job. I think Cam has done a great job approaching the team and the mindset we should have. And I think as a coach, the coach, of course, you have your tactics and what you want to do, but it's the players at the end of the day that take the charge. I think if you have that, you're going to be successful. You're going to get the job done. I think we do have that. I think the core players that we have been through it before in their career. They've been at the club for a decent amount of time. So I think it's nothing new for us. I think it's just finding an identity and committing to it. And just to have that mindset of, maybe I'll play a different role. Maybe someone else will. But, if we all chip in, it's gonna work out.
And last but not least, like, how do you see yourself on this team? I mean, you can play just about any attacking position, but where do you see yourself most effectively contributing to this team in a positive way and what you can do?
Yeah, I've asked this myself. To be honest, of course, I love to play the middle. I play the middle in Red Bull Leipzig and sometimes in New York as well in national team, but I also can play out wide with the national team. So I think anywhere along those lines, I can try to be effective. And I think, I'm not too picky. I don't mind either of them, just whatever I can do to help a team and get on the pitch.
Anybody since you've been in, I know you were around last year too, at the end of the season. But anybody since you've been back that you've really like, gotten some good advice from or gotten, so I'm not that you've not been around professional teams clearly,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
from this group that maybe you've really like latched on to any words of wisdom or somebody's personality.
Yeah, I think, well, my locker's next to Will and Robin, and then Z's across from me and Boxel as well. So I'm in a really
Dude,
good,
have you gotten more out of Robin? Like, what are you getting out of this guy? Like,
very, very, very little, very little. I talked to him a bit, but no, he's a really nice guy. But yeah, I would just say, Z and Will have helped me a lot, just kind of day by day. And I've talked to Hassani today about, I'm coming from a different system. So sometimes it's hard for me to realize where to be at some moments because I'm so used to, the high transition running through and behind and here, it's a bit slower and patient and kind of breaking them down. So it's just kind of those little things that I can have the conversations with Hassani and he's giving me some advice today. But like I said, everyone's been great and everyone's helpful. And honestly, it's a really tight knit group. We have some young players that make it really fun. So I think it's going to be a great year.
you saying the old players aren't fun?
No, they're awesome. I mean, Will and I love them. They're great. They're great.
I'm just kidding. I appreciate you taking the time. I know you got to rush off to something else, but I appreciate you taking the time. Look forward to seeing what 2024 looks like for you. I'm sure you're looking forward to getting to some warmer weather and kicking somebody else and not your own teammates for a little bit. But thanks so much, Caden, for taking the time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, of course.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in for another episode of Sound of the Loons presented by Allina Health. We will see you again next week. I believe the team will already be down in Tucson, so maybe there'll be some cactus and sunshine in the background for the next one. But thanks, everybody, for tuning in.